попробуйте эти пои, кто-нибудь поделится.
But yes, otherwise we're good to go. One minute. He's coming.
Ready to go. Sweet.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about 2 poi in one hand and how to get started so that way we can learn meteor style and staff spinning moves with one hand.
Сегодня будет 2 поиньки в одной руке от начала до чуть выше среднего уровня.
We're going to start from the very basics, so we're going to talk about grips, we're going to talk about poi, and then we're going to talk about all the foundations on how to do so.
С самых азов схвата и о том, как вообще начать.
So from the very beginning, your poi, you don't need handles for this. Handles will help, but you don't need handles, so don't worry. If you have sock poi, you're good.
Если у вас нету рукояточек, ничего страшного, сейчас нормально.
In 2 poi in one hand, it's really important to know that you're separating your two hands now into one hand, so you have 2 sides.
Ага. То есть, когда вы крутите двумя руками, у вас руки разделены. Здесь принцип тот же самый, вы должны помнить, что вы как бы работаете двумя частями руки одновременно.
So you have your thumb side and you have your pinky side. So
Мизинчик и большой палец.
what we're going to be talking about is the very foundation of spinning. You guys remember this, when you started spinning, how to do this. We're going to go back to that for a second, but we're going to rediscover what it means to spin. So spread out a little bit so you have enough room.
Разойдитесь немножечко, сейчас мы с самого начала еще раз посмотрим на это движение, зачем оно.
So what we're going to do is we're going to separate just like this, our thumb side and our pinky side. And we're going to start off spinning just like we did when we started.
Сначала одной, как самое начало, самое простое движение.
The idea is to keep your pinky side completely still.
Сконцентрируйтесь на том, чтобы внутренняя сторона, внутренний пой был абсолютно бездвижен.
You're going to find that they're going to hit. So the way to get past that, instead of spinning directly downwards, you want to spin it as if it's going to hit you in the face.
Ага. Чтобы они не стукались, начните, поменяйте плоскость. Да, чуть-чуть. Горизонтальную плоскость возьмите.
That diagonal plane is going to make it so that way you don't hit that bottom point. And you won't be able to tell if you're facing me in person that it's not directly straight.
Она не прямая.
So this is the very first thing you want to think about. Because once we started talking about poi in the very beginning, when we learned how to do anti-spin for the first time, we learned from this. And just like that, we're going to add this pinky side right here. And we're going to make it so that there's no excuses. We're going to do the same things that we did when we learned how to spin one poi.
Принцип точно такой же, как с одним поем. Сейчас самый базовый. Вот это первое движение, из него все остальное выходит.
It's important to take a second to get comfortable with this. Learn how to move it around a little bit. Maybe take your hands and shift it to the side, shift it up, shift it down, and just move it all around.
Почувствуйте себя уверенно вот с этим движением. Подвигайтесь, попой подвигайте. Почувствуйте, как оно ходит.
And if you're feeling a little gutsy and you want to try like more motion, you can kind of jump with it.
Если вам мало, попрыгайте. Да, но так, чтобы нижний пой оставался бездвижным.
So this right here is learning how to control your thumb side whilst adding your pinky side.
Это нужно для того, чтобы вы научились контролировать большой палец и одновременно с мизинцем.
The problem with 2 poi in one hand is that you have to work on how to control 2 different sides at the same time, enabling you to do stuff like this, where you can spin 2 sides going straight, but have them separate.
Здесь проблема как раз в том, чтобы 2 стороны руки контролировать одновременно.
So what we're going to do is, we've got this down. We all feel comfortable having our pinky side just draping down, right?
Всех получилось так, чтобы нижняя сторона не двигалась. Да, он надеется, что да.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and very, very slightly.
И делаем маленький маятничек нижней рукой.
So watch, really, really slightly.
Сначала очень медленно, очень потихонечку добавляем маятник внутренней стороной от мизинца.
Notice how my poi are going down together.
И смотрите, да, они опускаются одновременно. Попадайте в ритм.
And remember to have it go diagonal so you don't end up hitting the other poi.
По диагональке. Помните, верхний пой, который ходит, он идет по диагональной плоскости. И смотрите, как совпадают биты. То есть вниз они идут одновременно.
Getting comfortable with this is going to make it so that way this pendulum will start to add hybrids into our 3-poi and 2-poi one-hand patterns.
Когда у вас это будет хорошо получаться, это можно использовать, чтобы делать гибриды с 2 паями, с 3 паями. Да, обычный маятничек уже получается гибрид.
So once we have this little bit of discovery, once we start to really feel how we can move our poi, I want you to go ahead and make this motion wider.
Если у вас получается, добавляйте руку, делайте шире движение.
And if you're still finding trouble, don't worry. Have it go as slightly as possible.
А если проблемки, не переживайте, делайте медленно.
So from here, what I want you guys to do, we're going to be spinning counterclockwise.
Против часовой стрелки.
Feet shoulder to the park.
Встаивайте удобненько.
And we're going to shoot up like a skyrocket. Come up, down.
Ставите таким образом, что у вас мизинец смотрит к ведущей ноге. И дальше выстреливает.
Down.
Мизинчик снаружи смотрит здесь.
It's almost like a superhero coming down.
Как супергерой.
And you want to make sure as it comes across your body, you want it to be completely horizontal.
В идеале, когда оно проходит сверху, должно быть четко горизонтально.
And if you find that you're uncomfortable staying right here, practice this. Use your pinky side. Drill your pinky side spinning with your thumb side, just doing static.
Если у вас проблемы с приходом, вы не можете удержать это. Да? Сначала попрактикуйте мизинец снаружи. Вот это движение.
For those of you who feel comfortable already with your pinky side, something that you can add in, if you wrap with your elbow, you can come back the same direction.
А если у вас это отлично получается, вы делаете рэп, то есть стукаете крутящийся пой по плечо и возвращаете обратно.
So this is actually a stall chaser.
Sorry?
Stall chaser. Stall.
Да, это короче, да. Чейзер преследовать, он последовательность.
Догоняющий станок.
Догоняющая называется?
Догоняющая остановка.
Догоняющая остановка.
Согласно погоды.
Догоняющая остановка.
That sounds so much cooler. So,
Что? Да. Столчейзер? Кто как знает. Вот видишь, человек как переводит.
So the stall chaser, it's cool because it's a little bit different with one hand because you see how our hands separate with the stall chaser with two? What we're doing is we're wrapping to keep it one-handed. We can also let it pendulum, but that's harder. The reason why pendulums are harder with 2-poi in one hand is because you have to release control of one side of your hand and then regain control.
Эту же штуку можно делать без рэпов, с маятником, но так намного сложнее, потому что приходится сначала отпускать пой, потом его снова пытаться контролировать. Но в принципе можно.
So once we feel comfortable with this, we're going to get into how to start weaving with our poi. Do we feel kind of comfortable with our pinky side?
Как
Right
у вас
here?
сторона мизинца получается?
So. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let's jump to weaves. So from the very beginning, what I want you to think about is your one hand being actually two hands.
Попробуйте представить одну руку двумя.
So when you do a 2B weave,
Двухбитная восьмерочка.
right's on top, left's on bottom. What we're doing is we're actually going to combine this in one hand, and my pinky side will become my left hand. So watch really closely. My pinky side becomes my left hand. It's the same exact motion.
И мизинчик работает как левая рука.
So for those of you who do staff, this is the same thing. The important thing to think about, this is a head-led motion. This is a thumb side motion. Your thumb is leading the motion.
Здесь ведет большой палец. Вот это надо помнить.
So if I were to hit the floor whenever I would spin, you would see the thumb side hits first every time.
Большой палец всегда ведет здесь.
Because it's leading. So make sure that it's leading. Once you have this, we're going to try and get this as straight as possible, as narrow as we can. Straight.
Когда у вас это получится, да, делайте ровно в одной плоскости, так узко, как только можете.
Your first reaction might be to do this, which is fine. But
Если у вас даже это получается, уже ничего.
as you take this, you can start to make the motion more wrist-oriented by turning your wrist and your hand side to side.
Переходите больше на запястье.
My arm is straight out and I'm swaying.
Рука всегда выпрямлена, только двигается чуть-чуть в плече.
Yes. So a few things to think about. When we were doing a 2B weave when we started, one of the first things we learned was how to turn with it.
Самая первая вещь, поворот с восьмеркой.
What we're actually going to learn how to do is we're going to learn how to turn and wrap and stay in the same direction. So whenever we were to do a weave and we wrap, if we keep turning, we stay in the same direction.
Ну, такой же поворот с рэпом.
So watch really closely. Our thumb side, we're going to spin in wall plane. So we're spinning in this direction.
Все как с обычной восьмеркой двухбитной, да? Только одной рукой с рэпом.
Thumb side is going to come up and it's going to fall on our elbow, on top. And then the pinky side is going to keep moving until we stop it with our hand. It looks like this.
То есть тоже только тот бой, который от большого пальца на плечо, тот, который от мизинца, останавливает рукой. Это поворот в другую сторону.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to stop right here and then we're going to take a step and go forward.
После вот этого стопа останавливаемся и с шагом продолжаем вперед.
Notice how my body goes from straight facing you guys to facing my back. The motion is not wheel plane, it's in wall plane. So it falls right here. And then we're going to shoot on top. Turn. And when we turn, we're still going to be doing a forward 2B weave.
делать бежим.
Делится еще на людей. И даже групп людей зависит.
This motion makes it so that way we can just keep turning.
Таким образом можем крутиться, сколько влезет.
Ну, установи.
Floor plane.
Попробуйте в разных плоскостях. Любых вообще.
We can get into it by spinning like a cowboy clockwise. Up, down, down, up, up. And watch out so that you don't hit the person next to you.
Не убейте.
Этот.
And the same thing is important with this. You want the motion, you can make it nice and wide, but it's nice to make it look straight and narrow.
Можно, конечно, широко делать, но так не стоит.
If you have longer boy, be careful. Longer boy, it can be done in front of you like this.
Так длинненькими.
Now a cool thing to know is that if you actually just put your hand straight up, it's going to wrap around like this. So it actually looks kind of like... And now you're going in the other direction. So I have this going, I put my hand up, and just as it's about to collide, I turn my whole body and I twist my wrist. And as that happens, as I turn my waist, it's going to turn my whole orientation to wrap the boy in the other direction.
Да, раскручивайте вместе с телом, то есть не только запястьем.
You can keep wrapping if you want to in both directions. It's an infinite move. It looks pretty nice. But for the most part, that's the important thing to know, is that we have that wrap. You're probably wondering how to switch between frames as you're spinning. In the beginning of Boy, when I started learning, I was taught how to do the weave. And then when someone showed me the butterfly, I had to stop spinning and then do the butterfly. What you need to learn to do is how to transition between these two. So we're going to talk about the butterfly real quick and how to transition from this motion into the butterfly. So let's go ahead and let's get our butterfly first.
Давайте сначала сделаем бабочку, потом выучим переход. Возьмем бабочки.
So the idea here is that we want to be able to do this, right? Do a butterfly. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to just throw it in your hands and pray to God it works.
Вот так не надо.
What you want to do is you want to make sure you have a separation of thumb side and pinky side and control.
У вас должно быть обязательно разделение между стороной большим пальцем и мизинцем.
So for those of you who are comfortable with doing a butterfly normally, what I want you to do with your non-dominant hand, hold the boy upside down.
Не основной рукой, просто подержите бой вниз головы.
Dominant hand holds it right side up.
Основной рукой вверх, 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 вверх. Большой палец вверх на основной руке.
That's so that when you're doing your butterfly and you hand it off to your other hand,
И передаете таким образом.
you have a separation of pinky side and thumb side.
Если вы делаете это таким образом, тогда у вас разделяется нижняя сторона руки и верхняя.
So the first reaction is to just toss it in there. But you want to make sure you have a separation just like this. Thumb side, pinky side.
Поняли? Мотайте головой. Это понятно? Основная рука, да? Бой смотрит наверх в основной руке. В основной руке бой наверх идет, и основной руке бой идет вниз. Если у вас левая рука, вы держите бой, просто смотрит вниз.
So do you see if it's right side up? They're both thumb side. This makes a separation.
Таким образом получается вот это разделение. Нет, у тебя не получилось. Это должно быть вот так. А это таким.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to get this butterfly to get closer and closer. And our dominant hand is going to open up just enough behind the boy spinning that we can just put it right there and grab it.
И вот таким образом соединяете. Вот, получается. Не забывая о том, что у вас должно быть, вы должны чувствовать разделение между большим пальцем и мизинцем. Но у тебя не получается, потому что ты держишь неправильно. Нет, у тебя, смотри, у тебя оба смотрят вверх, видишь? Оба пояс смотрят вверх. Ты правша или левша? Значит, вот этот вверх, а вот этот вниз.
Is anyone having problems? Any issues?
Проблемки? Вопросики?
Okay. Perfect. Something that's actually really interesting to know about the butterfly is that just the same motion that we did before with the horizontal, this is actually a family move of the butterfly.
Интересная штучка о бабочке, что вот этот рэп это из того же семейства, что и бабочка.
So if both are going horizontal, this is actually a butterfly that's been flattened out and still spinning.
Если они оба идут горизонтально, это та же бабочка, только когда ее сплющили.
You can bring it back by just moving up and down.
Вот раз и бабочка.
Or you can make it go back to where it wasn't flattened by letting your hand flatten out.
Распрямляете руку и получается снова вот это движение.
In an art form that's so concentrated on expression and being able to show how you feel, this allows you to move, this allows you to shift, and this allows you to change perspective and audiences.
Как в любом искусстве, это очень позволяет вам хорошо двигаться, работать с аудиторией, выражать себя.
So if I'm spinning facing you, I can flatten out and turn, and then go back to the motion.
Поменяли плоскость, поменяли ориентацию на зрителя.
So it's important to know this because this is what's going to allow you to move and shift and then go back to where we came from. Eventually this.
Эта смена плоскости, просто смена плоскости позволяет вам очень легко двигаться по сцене.
Okay, so back to the butterfly.
Бабочки опять.
So now that we're here, for those of us that feel comfortable with the motion, what we're going to do is we're going to move at 12 and 6 on the clock, moving up and down.
У тех, кого получается бабочка, вертикально.
The funny thing about the butterfly, or at least all moves in 2-1 hand, if your poi are doing perfect planes, if you have perfect planes, you will actually get nowhere.
Интересная штука про работу с двумя паями одной рукой. Если у вас идеальные плоскости, у вас ничего не получится.
You'll just hit yourself over and over again.
Вы просто будете себя бить.
So it's important to know that being imperfect is perfect in this situation.
Да, быть несовершенством здесь как раз совершенство.
Story of my life.
Это Джон.
So up and down, right? You want to get this line going, and if they collide, give yourself a little bit of a shift in your hands. Let your hand come up and turn.
Если они у вас все-таки сталкиваются, двигайте рукой чуть-чуть запястьем, наверх-вниз.
The same way we would turn.
Поворачивайте руку.
The same way we would turn if we were to turn butterfly into this.
Такое же движение, как при переходе.
If you're not having issues with board gliding, don't twist your hand because then you're going to be doing this.
Если у вас вы не сталкиваются, то не надо делать движение.
You want to make sure you're nice, strong, and in place.
Встаньте.
So how do we feel about the butterfly right here?
Как бабочка?
По скрипту.
Ништяк.
I'm seeing a lot of butterflies, and I'm seeing a lot of people with faces. What do you think? Yes, yes. Or da, da. So from here, what I want us to do is I want us to shift the bottom part of the butterfly. The way our feet were separated, shoulder to the part, we're going to jump, instead of between our legs, we're going to jump from foot to foot.
Станьте пошире, и когда вниз опускаетесь, к одной ноге, к другой ноге.
Just as if we were hitting the point, the corners of a triangle.
По треугольничку.
When it comes to these big motions, it actually helps to learn pretty small at first, and then to widen it as it feels more comfortable.
Начните с маленького треугольничка у себя и постепенно расширяйте движение. Даже прыгать.
And if at any point we're uncomfortable or we have any issues, things are going awry, 12 and 6 on the clock, come back up and down. This will be your safety net.
Если сбиваетесь, возвращайтесь в одну линию 6-12 часов.
So once we're here,
Автомобиль с крутами готовы. Где это?
Из этой штуки можно делать разные другие.
as our pinky side comes up, it scoops up here. As it scoops up, we can grab it.
Значит, та сторона, которая с мизинца, когда она поднимается, хватаем ее. Продолжаем крутить только с большого пальца.
And do you remember what we did before?
И переход в восьмерку.
This is going to help us combine the two so that we can utilize either a wrap
Можно с рэпом это сделать.
or we can let the boy just pendulum pull.
Или с маятником. Ну, начните с хватания.
The timing on this is pretty difficult, but you have to really focus on how to stop the boy. So it helps the point. I know you look silly, but we're all going to do it. So it'll be fine.
Здесь важен тайминг. Да? Следите за поем, который идет от мизинца, чтобы его схватить вовремя.
Grab it once you feel comfortable, and then you're going to toss it down and you're going to turn.
И с движением поя вниз переворачиваетесь.
This motion can be done in reverse. So I can stop it and then toss into the butterfly. This is what's going to make the difference between you doing this and then you doing this.
Это важно как раз для красивых переходов.
And understanding what you're doing.
Ну и понимать, что вы делаете.
So take a second to really understand the pinky side, to understand the separation, and what you can do if you want to. It doesn't just have to be your pinky side. You can grab your thumb side as it comes down as well. And then toss that over to weave on the other side.
Попробуйте немножко еще раз сделать так, чтобы почувствовать бабочку. Когда будет комфортно, сделайте наоборот. Поймайте не от мизинца, а поймайте пой от большого пальца и сделайте поворот в другую сторону.
This can be done left to right, right to left, however you want to. So from the butterfly, wrap, turn, wrap,
Если
butterfly.
получается, не хватайте, делайте просто рэп.
So we're going to go back to the бutterfly,
Если вернемся к бабочке.
back to 12 and 6. From this motion, we're going to revisit the foot to foot,
Треугольник.
and instead of moving as low to our feet, we're going to widen the motion to move from our arm span.
То есть теперь не вниз будем в сторону раздвигать, а широко, максимально широко по рукам.
If you find this is difficult and it's a strain on your arms, start off smaller. It almost looks kind of like a truck driver kind of thing.
Если тяжело, вы можете вот поработать вот таким образом, как пьяный водитель на дискотеке.
So take this motion, start off small.
Маленькое движение, да, потихонечку делать его более широким.
The reason why we're moving so wide is because this is what's going to allow us to start talking about flowers and start talking about how we can turn it into something a little bit different, whether it be triquetra versus extension or any other sort of flowers that stop.
Более сложный элемент, а не отсюда.
So what are some of the issues that we're having moving from this point here? From moving side to side?
Получается? Only for 5 seconds. Не надо делать, не старайся в одной плоскости делать. Делай разные.
And if you're having issues, remember, if it's starting to go crazy, 12 and 6, reset. Now the cool thing about this, for those of you who are feeling more comfortable and more adventurous within this, is we can start to talk about accents. And what accents are it's a series of poi moves that's very minimal, that adds character and almost a certain level of expression to a move you already know. So we're familiar with the butterfly more or less right now.
Всех более-менее получилось?
What we can do is we can actually move along the length of our poi. If you have a third poi, if you have a staff or anything like that, it's just something that it's important to know that you can do.
Вот есть третий пой или палочка какая-нибудь или став, да? То есть надо подвигать вот вашу бабочку на определенную длину.
We can then shift this motion. You can also totally use your arm.
Если ничего нет, то на длину руки, так чтобы вы точно знали, на какую длину вы двигаете.
The idea being that we can actually shift the motion to build something completely different off of something that we just learned.
На разных уровнях.
This being the whole concept behind accents. Accents.
Основная вещь для важных точек. Для акцентов.
When we talked about this minimal motion right here, this small, tiny motion, this little guy, this is actually built off of this right here.
Если вот это маленькое движение мы добавляем маятник третьим поем, уже получается красивая штучка.
We can widen them as wide as we wanted before.
Сделать большой маятник.
Or as tiny as we wanted.
Или совсем маленький.
In that same respect, we can also add a larger motion to stuff that we already know with 2-poi, like cats.
Или добавить даже простую вот восьмерочку или что-то третьим поем.
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. Pinky side's doing nothing. We're just
Сначала
gonna
мизинец ничего не делает.
spin counterclockwise.
Против часовой стрелки.
Do you remember before when we jumped over to the other side?
Это движение перехода.
We're going to interrupt that jump to move down and up into butterfly.
Ага. Посередине вы его прерываете, это движение, и переходите в бабочку.
This is going to make it so that way you don't have to set up the butterfly and do this whole thing. That way you can just hold it, flip it, and move up and down.
Таким образом вы можете перейти не с буквы в бабочку, а начать сразу с одной.
This move has a lot of finesse. Don't jump straight into it. Don't flatten out into it. What you want to do is give yourself time. You'll have as much time as you give yourself.
Не торопитесь, вот сделайте четко, хорошо, ровно. И вот с этим большим движением.
Do you see the difference between this?
Так получается фигня.
Is actually the tubey weave, but it's going to twist your arm either upside down or right side up in a really odd twist.
Ага. Когда вы делаете обратную восьмерку одной рукой, ну, приходится выворачивать руку либо через низ, либо через верх. Лучше через низ, так выглядит приятнее.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have our palm facing up.
Ладошкой вверх
Our
выворачивать.
hand is upside down. So once we flip over, we're holding it outward. We're going to go upside down.
И сверху вниз таким образом.
People's first reaction to doing a reverse weave is this, which is fine. But in order to keep consistent with everything we're learning, we should learn the 2-beat weave first.
То есть она там еще с заворотом может делаться обычно.
And then flipping around, swaying side to side, and getting this motion, that's totally fine. We don't have to just jump straight into it. We can give ourselves, again, as much time as we give ourselves.
Опять же, вот с этой штуки можно начинать удобно.
Штормовое предупреждение 80% и град.
So this motion is thumb led. Make sure that your thumb is the one that's going to be hitting the floor the first time, every time.
Следите за тем, что у вас был ведущий большой палец.
How do we feel about this? Are we having some issues? Is it hitting anywhere specific on our body?
Вопросы? Или куда-то конкретно стукается у вас всегда, или все нормально? Ну, it's okay.
This thumb led, or is this led with my right hand or my left hand?
Трехбитная.
That's the question.
В трехбитной, как вам кажется, какая рука ведет у него, левая или правая?
What was that? Both?
In turns. They say in turns.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Да, конечно.
A lot of people say, oh, it's your left, or oh, it's your right. It's both. So you actually, if you're doing a 3-beat weave, the reason why we're doing a 2-beat, if we're doing a 3-beat, we have to switch which side is making the motion happen. You have to switch the driving style.
В трехбитной приходится также менять. Сначала у вас ведет большой палец, потом мизинец.
So you have to release control of your thumb side to let your pinky side gain control. And then you have to do the reverse of that on the way back.
Вам приходится позволять мизинцу сначала контролировать движение, ослабляя большой палец, потом наоборот.
Which is why we were doing the 2-beat weave instead. It's just a lot easier. To the other. So this gives us a 2-beat weave and forward on the other side of our body on non-native. So take a second to get that. Take your non-native hand and hold it onto your non-native body, on your shoulder, and breathe right here. The reason why our hands on our shoulder is because we want to make sure that it's completely out of the way. And so from here, we're going to scoop around. And go to the reverse 2-beat. And then back over. Does this feel uncomfortable getting this motion? It should probably hurt your shoulder a little bit, so be careful about that. You want to listen to your body. Yeah, this might hurt your shoulder, but yeah, from right here, switching over to the other side. This can be done with a body tracer as well. Under a meteor style of spinning. As Boy is modernized, there's been a lot of So Superman being a motion that involves one consistent wrap and one consistent spin.
Супермен такое движение, которое подразумевает постоянно один рэп и один спин.
This is true for all Superman style modes, even though they switch, like the Fantastic Four we were talking about earlier.